Agriculture and timber production are not the main drivers of deforestation in the country. Instead, U.S. forest land has remained largely stable over the past decade, and there's even been a significant increase in forest carbon stocks. Let's break this down in more detail. The United States has been monitoring its forest and cropland dynamics closely, using a combination of Earth observation technologies and on-the-ground surveys. While satellite data alone can sometimes struggle to capture the full picture, especially when it comes to subtleties like sustainable forest management practices, the USDA has developed a comprehensive system. It combines satellite imagery with structural analysis and nationwide surveys, making the data more accurate and reliable. Since 2010, forest carbon stocks have increased by nearly 2,000 million metric tons of carbon, or 3.6%. The key threats to U.S. forests are not agriculture, but rather factors like insect infestations, wildfires, extreme weather events, invasive species, and urban development. The main driver of land use change in the United States is conversion to urban development, not cropland. Interestingly, the USDA report shows that many areas that were once used for agriculture are now reverting back to forest. This shift is partly due to socioeconomic changes and incentive programs like the USDA's Conservation Reserve Program, which encourages reforestation and supports healthy, dynamic landscapes where forests and agriculture can coexist. Any marginal shifts from forest to cropland that do occur are statistically insignificant and are primarily limited to land that had already been cultivated in the past. The United States has made a strong commitment to sustainable forest management. As part of global efforts to halt and reverse deforestation by 2030, the U.S. government is advancing policies and initiatives aimed at protecting forests and promoting carbon sequestration. For example, President Biden's 2021 executive order on tackling the climate crisis emphasized the need to conserve global forests, and the Biden-Harris administration has developed a plan to conserve critical carbon sinks around the world. The U.S. is also playing a leadership role in international efforts to protect forests, such as the Forests and Climate Leaders Partnership, which was launched at the COP27 climate conference in Egypt. Domestically, President Biden's 2022 executive order on strengthening the nation's forests prioritizes safeguarding old-growth forests, promoting reforestation, and implementing nature-based solutions to combat climate change. The USDA's Forest Service is making historic investments in sustainable forest management. These investments include funding for wildfire prevention and efforts to combat the effects of climate change on forests, grasslands, and communities. Programs like the Forest Legacy Program encourage the protection of privately owned forest land through conservation easements and land purchases. As a result of these initiatives, the U.S. has already exceeded its 2020 goal of restoring 15 million hectares of forest land. To date, over 20 million hectares have been restored. The USDA is also leading the way in advancing forest carbon science. Through research, monitoring, and partnerships, the USDA is improving our understanding of how forests absorb and store carbon, support biodiversity, and provide essential services for people and the planet. The USDA has developed several tools and resources for estimating carbon storage and carbon flux, which are widely used in carbon markets and by forest managers and policymakers. Beyond this, the USDA has established climate hubs across the country, which serve as collaborative centers for developing and sharing climate-related research and technology. These hubs provide region-specific information to help land managers make climate-informed decisions. The USDA also co-leads the adaptive Silviculture for Climate Change Network, which is focused on developing and testing strategies for helping forests adapt to the changing climate. The report also highlights the robust system of Earth observation data used to monitor forest land in the United States. This includes the Landsat program, which has been providing satellite imagery of the U.S. since the 1970s, as well as newer tools like Sentinel-2 from the European Copernicus program, which offers even higher resolution images. The USDA's National Agricultural Imaging Program provides aerial imagery during peak growing seasons, helping to monitor changes in forest cover. Additional resources like the Global Ecosystem Dynamics Investigation, or GEDI, instrument on the International Space Station, use laser scanning to estimate the structure of forests, giving scientists a better understanding of forest degradation and changes in carbon storage. Looking ahead, NASA's upcoming radar mission in partnership with India's space agency, NISAR, will offer even more detailed data on land use, deforestation, and climate change impacts when it launches in 2024. In addition to satellite data, field-based surveys and reports play a critical role in understanding land use dynamics in the United States. The USDA's National Resources Inventory, for example, provides a long-term data set on land use trends across non-federal lands in the U.S. Meanwhile, the Forest Inventory and Analysis Program, which has been running for nearly a century, offers statistically reliable data on forest resources, including information on timber, wildlife habitats, and the socioeconomic aspects of forest use. The report also underscores the importance of the U.S. Forest Service's ongoing efforts to track and report on forest conditions. This includes contributions to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, where the U.S. reports on greenhouse gas emissions and removals from forest land and other land use categories. The USDA continues to play a leading role in sustainable land management using cutting-edge science and technology to protect forests and combat climate change. Through partnerships with states, tribes, private landowners, and other organizations, the U.S. is making significant progress in forest restoration, carbon sequestration, and conservation. In conclusion, the data makes it clear: agriculture and timber production in the United States are not driving deforestation. Instead, U.S. forests are growing, and the government is investing heavily in sustainable forest management, reforestation, and climate resilience. By continuing to prioritize these efforts, the United States is well positioned to meet its goals of halting deforestation and restoring critical ecosystems.